Hi, this is Bill, and I'm going to talk about longevity today and why I don't think I'm very good at it. This is a reaction to a bunch of posts I've been seeing coming from a guy named Tony, whose channel is I Am Longevity, and he's challenging a number of these, I guess, well-known fitness or longevity influencers on their idea of what matters with longevity. Tony's position is is that we may have a hard cap around 120 years for humans, and that loss of motor neuron function is the critical thing. While others have promoted the VO2 max and strength and a bunch of other, maybe certain blood markers and so on and so forth. My take on all this is that I think all of this stuff is pre-coupled, and I guess I've always felt that it's the baseline parameters that really matter, not what you can train them to. And I think this is where, or maybe Tony may be a bit more onto something. But to talk about Peter Attia and the VO2 max thing, I mean, he's just based his observation on actual, I guess, centenarians saying that, yeah, they're in the top 2% of VO2 max. Well, that's data. So I guess, I mean, I don't know how you can argue against that obviously mattering. I would say it matters. Now, I would also feel that from my experience in these kind of things that it seems like you're either good at everything or kind of good at nothing sort of thing, or some spectrum in there. And so these people that have the high VO2 maxes probably have decent strength and probably decent motor function capabilities too. And as I said in the video a while back, it's pretty brain dead obvious that all this stuff would lead to longevity, because at some point, your VO2 max goes to zero, or your strength goes zero, or your motor function goes zero. It seems like that and strength would be pretty highly coupled, because strength is exertion through motor control. You're going to be dead. So if you start off with the higher baseline values in these things, you've got a longer runway to go before you're going to be dead. So yeah, I say this is brain dead obvious. So yeah, so the next thing I will show you some more longevity, or at least lifespan distributions, and that actually seem to support what Tony is saying. So this will be interesting to show, and yeah, I'll get on to that next. Okay, here I show a distribution of longevity for males born in 1954 that you can get from the Social Security Administration. And that's basically what it tells you here. This curve here tells you the number of deaths by age, divided by 100,000. And as you can see, it steadily goes up as you get older. It hits a peak at around, I guess it's 88.7, and then it comes down rather quickly above that age. And I've taken out infant mortality, which is actually a pretty huge number here, but that's not really relevant for this discussion, because we're kind of talking about longevity, generally into your 60s, 80s, and 100s, whatever. So when I looked at this initially, I thought, boy, this looks like kind of a bimodal distribution. And so here, what I decided to do, I fit it a little differently than last time, is that I decided to take the downslope here, because this looks very Gaussian, and it does fit Gaussian well. And it just fit a Gaussian function here. And then I've subtracted the main curve off what's left over, and you get this curve here, which is kind of a skewed Gaussian kind of shaped thing. Okay, and I think there may be two kind of causes of death here. Actually, there really are three. But the one at the high age, and I'm calling that frailty, and this is the one that matters in terms of a lot of these longevity discussions. People say that the VO2 max matters, or motor function matters, or strength, all that. This is where you're dying frailty, because the function of those things have declined so much that it basically becomes non-life sustaining. I mean, like, for example, VO2 max going to zero, or strength going to zero, for example. And what's left over here is there's really two causes happening here, two basic causes. One, I would say death by violence. This is generally accidents, an injury to the human body, and the other one is would say caused by disease. This is heart disease, cancer, metabolic problems like diabetes, and neurological type problems like Alzheimer's, brain problems. They all fall in here. And I would probably venture to say that when you get over the age of 50, most of those are going to be probably disease, and probably the younger age is going to be mostly by violence. So for the sake of discussion, we're just going to kind of focus on disease versus frailty here. So, and this curve you see going up here, this is the accumulated percentage of deaths by frailty. So you can see that certainly before the age of 70, nobody pretty much dies by frailty. You're all dying by disease at this point. And the peak of the deaths by disease is probably in about around the mid-70s. And then after that, you can see that dying from things like cancer and heart disease start to fall off pretty quickly, and it's more likely now frailty becomes your mortality risk as the age goes on. So now the one point I want to make out, this is what Tony said about no one living past 120. Well, this certainly is supporting that. You can see this longevity distribution crashes really quickly, and I'll give some table of numbers later. That by the time you're 120 years old, really nobody's dying. Everyone's pretty much dead by that time. There's really nobody living past that. You're talking about world record, 1 in 8 billion kind of numbers. So yeah, it does seem like observationally there seems to be a really hard limit there, and that's being borne out by the data. Okay, here's a table of numbers. So if I use the death by disease function, I guess I was a little off here. The peak of the distribution is about 72.4 years. And the half width of this is about 27 years, so there's a pretty big spread on that. Death by frailty, the peak of the distribution is 88.7, and the spread is about 17.2 years for the half width. Actually, it's a full width at half height. I wrote that wrong. It should be full width at half height. So now I look at myself. I'm almost 68 now. So this is a sobering thought, is that for all cause mortality, pretty much we're close to like almost 1 in 4 people having already passed away by this age, and that's not even including the infant mortality, which is actually pretty significant. So, actually I think, given what I know about myself, it's probably good that I'm probably doing well to even be alive sometimes. Yeah, frailty, it's essentially zero. Even at 75 years old, 35% of us will have passed away, and but by frailty, you're only at about 3%. And I would say chances are, whether that's true Gaussian fit or not, that's essentially negligible. We're all pretty much, 68 to 75. We're now more likely to be dying of disease. We probably won't be frail. 81.67 is the 50 percentile for what I call the all cause. That's in essence what you may call the median age. Half of us have died, half of us are still alive. We make it to 81.67. Frailty, that would be only 18.02%. Now, I marked this one out here, 85.25 years, for all cause. 59.5% people will have passed away, but only 35% would be by frailty. And the reason why I singled this out is because, according to my VO2 max baseline, which is what I think matters, which I'll reiterate why later, this is the maximum age I probably will live to. And then just to fill out the rest of the chart here, 90 years, if you make it 90 years, you'll have outlived 94.7% of the population, or you'll or let's see, is that right? Sorry, no, that's not right. 76.1% of the population, 61.13% of people that have died of frailty. 95, you've now outlived 94.7%, or you'll be 84.2% of frailty. And 100, it would be 97.6% of everybody, and 95.6% on the frailty curve. Yeah, the reason why I think the baseline parameters on whatever metric you want to measure for longevity matters is because let's take VO2 max for example. When I first started running, I estimated, I was not very good at running, by the way. My coach told me, just do this for fun and fitness, you have no talent. And he was right. But anyway, yeah, I based on that is how I came up with the 35%. So through a lot of training and I guess just throwing my heart and soul to it, my running times would have suggested I would be in the upper 95%. But one thing I noticed, especially when I was 57 to 58, my running ability has just crashed. I mean, and I think the reason why that's happened, I've pondered this a lot, but I think the reason why it's happened is age declines are coming in, and because I was so far above my baseline, it's just going to make that crash be harder than what it probably would be for let's say a more sensibly trained person. So yeah, and then on the strength side of things, my experience from school, I was one of the few kids that couldn't do a pull-up, so I probably was in the bottom 5% there. But through a lot of calisthenics training, I've gotten stronger, but now I'm starting to see this decline. And again, I fear that this is going to crash just as hard when it really starts going down. I've been in a lot of pain, again, because I'm performing so much well above my baseline. So if, I'm going to say if the weakest link is what really matters here, in this case, maybe I'm the bottom 5% of strength, that ends up limiting my frailty. My age may be quite a bit less than 85, but that's even assuming I don't get a disease that kills me sooner. So yeah, now going on to Tony's motor function thing, I've always moved my body badly my whole life. I probably moved my body worse at 10 years old than what an average 60-year-old can do now. And so maybe in one sense, Tony may be on to something, that this may be something you can't train or fake, if you want to put it that way. Yeah, so in that sense, you may not have this, they'll be able to mask it over. And that's been kind of my issue with a lot of these longevity people is that, you can train this stuff really hard, but I'm not convinced it really ends up adding that much time to your longevity. And the reason for this is because, as these baseline parameters decline, so does your return on training investment decline too. You can only put so many hours into the day and work so hard at it. I mean, you're working harder to be less, and that ends up becoming a self-defeating reality, and you're going to end up declining to your baseline at some point. And yeah, I think you could maybe add a few years. I'm not saying you can't, but I think really what happens, as opposed to just slowing that decline, I mean, it probably does a little. I think it just makes, when the decline happens, it crashes harder. I'm noticing that. And if you look at studies, you see this all the time. Let's take distance running, for example, because that's something I'm familiar with. This should be a pretty good way to train VO2 max. It's probably as good as any. And they'll tell you that studies show that distance runners live, I don't know, maybe 3 years longer, 5 years longer. It's not, it's not 20. I mean, it's just a few number of years. And so sometimes I wonder if this is why I don't really follow this longevity stuff too much, because I just don't think I just don't believe you have that much influence over it. And I'm kind of amazed at the number of people that do, but sometimes I just wonder if this is just a Michael Jordan effect that is like, obviously Michael Jordan, amazing basketball player, but I don't think nobody looks at how he trains with the expectation, well, gee, I do this, I can get into the NBA too. I think people realize that these people are just tremendously otherworldly gifted, and they just enjoy seeing, what the human body is capable of. And I think I said the same thing with these fitness influencers too, or these longevity influencers too. They're all exceptionally gifted and well ahead of everyone else in this area. And I think most people would probably accept, I'm probably not going to benefit from this too much. And I see myself as kind of an experiment too, because I'm definitely not a gifted person for any of this stuff, and I actually think it'll probably be a miracle if I lived even 80 years old. Based on how so far behind it. If I do live that, if I even make it to 85 or whatever, I guess it will be kind of a testament that all this, particularly the strength side of the training, really did help me a lot. I haven't put it past the idea that I really think that all this hard strength and fitness training I've done is really been good for my health. But has it lengthened my life? That experiment is ongoing at the moment, and I don't know what the answer is going to be. So stay tuned. Hopefully, I'll be posting YouTube videos 20 years from now. Maybe I'll get up to 400 followers by then. So anyway, thank you, and comment. Let me know what you think, and until next time, bye-bye.